Welcome back to another episode of the Adventure Athletes podcast. In this week's episode, I sit down with Nick Lyons, an ultra runner from here in South Wales. Now, I'd met Nick before doing the podcast, but I really didn't know much about him. And then when someone suggested I get him on the podcast, I thought I'd reach out and get him on. And he did not disappoint at all. We had some really deep, good conversations, and I learned a lot about dyslexia, which I wasn't expecting going into this. I really didn't know much about dyslexia, but he really taught me a lot, and it's opened my eyes to what it means to be dyslexic. We had a really good conversation. He is one of those people that is just living and breathing the adventure athlete's lifestyle. He is always up for some nonsense, and I can see why Dan gets on with him so well. So without any further ado, enjoy the episode, guys. What was your call to adventure?
I would say it was less of a call to adventure, more sort of a pitiful whine. Yeah. I don't really like the term adventure. I just see it as going out and doing things. My background with adventures probably is very long, and really starts at university. I was doing a molecular and cellular biology degree at Kent University at Canterbury. Really like top level science research stuff. I mean, my tutor back in uni then, he was the guy who invented Viagra. We're talking like one of the top 10 unis in the country for that sort of subject, looking at how to build enzymes from the ground up and stuff. And this is sort of back in 2003. And my big life hack is I am really dyslexic. I'm like really, really dyslexic. Like I am almost illiterate. And spending 18 hours a day going to the library and studying graphs and books and really drove me from that subject, something that I'd always loved. I mean, my big thing in life is you've got to learn. You've got to learn. The second you give up learning things and doing things, my dad always said he wanted to die from boredom, but that's virtually impossible. And he's right. Like you've always got to be pushing that brain, because the second your brain and your physical ability are the two things in life that the second you stop using them, you will lose them. So you've got to, I've always driven to learn new skills, new information. So I'm always open to learning. And I actually got myself into a real pickle. And I remember saying to my parents, like, I came home for Christmas in my second year of uni, and I was just done. Absolutely. I was burnt out big time. And I just remember saying to my mum, like, I just can't go back. I just can't do it. And letting them down was like the biggest fear there, really. And mum was like, okay. And I was, oh, okay. And so she's like, right, so what can we do, or what do you need to do then? And it took me a while. But the one thing I used to do a lot of at university was rock climbing. It's just one of those things I picked up along the way. When I first went to uni, in high school, the only team or only thing I really was very good at, apart from doing my schoolwork at school, was playing Dungeons and Dragons. So, which I played at a national level for Brecon High School. I'm from Brecon. So yeah, like I used to go to competitions. I mean, and being one of the science nerds in school that plays D&D, I kind of fell into that sort of big bang sort of geek decades before it was cool. And so like in the late 90s, early 2000s, and my physical attributes were pretty poor. And so when I went to university, the first thing I took up was rowing, which I rowed for Kent University for 2 years. I also took up kendo, which was my sort of real first contact with martial arts, and I took up rock climbing, mainly on a dare. And I suppose that's where my love for adventure or my love for doing things came from. Is I never sit still. I really struggle to quiet the voice in my head, which comes from my dyslexia. And so really it's that what drove me. So I just remember sitting there with my mum and talking about what my future was going to be, because I was 20 years old, didn't know what, because like up to that point my entire plan had fallen apart for my life, and I didn't know what to do. And I stumbled across a degree in outdoor education in the Lake District, and coming from a academic background, my first thought was, I could do a degree in outdoor ed. That seems like the logical step. And then going to university and learning about outdoor education, and being exposed to that, realizing that actually you don't need a degree to be an outdoor instructor. In fact, if you ever meet an outdoor instructor with a degree, they're very far and few between. So I, at 20 years old, went straight to university to do outdoor education in the Lake District for 3 years, and had the most incredible time ever, because I actually discovered a degree. Rather than spending 18 hours a day like reading books and stuff, I was actually out rock climbing, sea kayaking, canoeing, out on the hills, just doing really stupid things. I mean, even like nights out, Wednesday nights out in Ambleside. To give you some context, Ambleside's university is 600 students, the smallest university campus in the UK, in a village of a population of 2,000. So 1 in 4 people is likely to be a student in Ambleside, or was back in the early 2000s. There's a very long history of students being there, because it was started by Charlotte Mason, who was best friends with Beatrix Potter. Beatrix Potter took her money and built the National Trust from the 9 farms she had, and her friend Charlotte Mason took the land she owned and created a higher department of education for young ladies to become school teachers. This is back in the Victorian era. So there's always been this sort of historical education centre there in Ambleside, in this tiny little village. It's probably the same size of Crickall. You imagine putting 600 students full time in a tiny little town like Crickall. Ambleside was wild. There was one nightclub. Actually, it was called a disco bar, and it was the basement of one of the local pubs. And if you weren't in the nightclub by 9 o'clock in the evening, you weren't getting in, because there wasn't enough room. There was only enough room for like 60 people, and so you had to get in early. And then everyone would get completely drunk and then go down to the lake shore and go skinny dipping. That was what you did on a Wednesday night. You got pissed, you went skinny dipping, and then So anyway, so my formative years as a student were quite hands-on, and I mean that degree was wild, because we would get things like this. Your next week, I remember in the second year, they famously would, the last lecture before Easter, they'd give you an envelope which had a grid reference for your next lecture, which happened to be in north of Spain, and you had 6 weeks to get there under your own steam. Like when they say university doesn't teach you life skills, that's bollocks. My degree was all about life skills. I was doing like my final year exams were things like 13 days sea kayaking around the Outer Hebrides, and like having to plan all of that, like talking to the Coast Guard on the radio, having exams on listening to the shipping forecast, and those sort of skills for being outdoors. And that sort of created an incredibly broad and diverse foundation in which to build my career in the outdoors. And I'm still working in the outdoors now. I've tried to change the trajectory a few times, but it always seems to swing back. Like I've trained to be, I did an apprenticeship with the Brecon Beacons National Park. I've done an apprenticeship with the Canal and River Trust to be a stonemason. Did some training to become a gardener. I ran a gardening team. I even worked as a milkman around Crickall. But yeah, I'm still in and around the outdoor industry. I just now am government sponsored because I'm a civil servant. I work for the Army Adventurous Training Group. And but now I've got a desk job, and I'm a storeman, so I look after kit. I'm not forward-facing training anymore, which is a brilliant thing for me. I am hugely disorganized in my life, and I love to challenge myself through work. So having to be super organized, keeping records, doing all of that sort of stuff, and cleaning kit all day, and fixing bikes, fixing boats. I'm a fully qualified bike mechanic. I've got all these outdoor qualifications, and sort of when you rock up, and I've got all my storm qualification for the army, which is just a whole different thing. I rock up at work, and it's like today I sign the kit out. I spend all day fixing stuff, looking after, maintaining, keeping records, doing PPE checks, and then the guys come back in. I sign all the kit back in, and then I ask them about their day. And then in the mornings it's talking, because our wing, we help train outdoor instructors for the army at our wing. We are not we provide outdoor experiences for soldiers, but really what we're doing is we're training the instructors. So that train the trainer stuff, which is, even though I'm not doing the training, I'm still teaching them about the kit and stuff, which is great. Like, it's just, so for me, the sort of outdoor stuff and the adventure stuff is just commonplace. And I do struggle when people say, how did you find adventures? Adventure, people never go looking for adventure. Adventures find people, and it's just doing stuff for me. That's just totally normal. My beloved wife is, I'm one of those terrible husbands who come up with crazy ideas. The only problem I've got is that I back it up. So when I say things, do you know what? I think I'm gonna run the length of the country. Okay, dear. I get that. Yeah, what do you need from me? I'm like, well, normally I just need time. Like, that's the great leveler, is getting time away. Fine. I will, make sure Millie's my daughter's got a babysitter, and then I go out and run the length of the country. But that's totally normal for my family, and like, my parents do not get it at all. Like, they're clean cut. My mum, civil servant, her whole working life worked in graphics. My dad's an electrician. They do not get it at one bit. That's just, and a lot of it goes back down to my dyslexia, because I was really thinking about what sort of things to talk about on this podcast when you first invited me, and for me is, do you know Hannah from Merthyr?
Yeah.
Hannah Phillips?
Yeah, Hannah Phillips.
So Hannah, I love Hannah to bits, and she always tells me, like, last time I saw her, she was like, you're like an oddity, because most people do ultra racing and ultra running, and there's some sort of trauma they're dealing with. And then I spoke to her about being dyslexic, and she was like, oh, that's your trauma. And I'm like, well, no, it's not a trauma. I've had to learn to cope with it. And do you know much about dyslexia?
Not a huge amount, no.
So dyslexia means word blindness, and a lot of people just think you can't read and write, but that's not even the tip of the iceberg. It's like, dyslexia forms in the brain. The brain forms very differently in dyslexia. So in a normal working brain, you have left and right sides of the brain, and one side will have an enormous language center, and the other side will have a very small language center. And the way it works is, the brain will operate on one side of the brain, be it left or right, depending on the person you are. And then if it struggles with something or needs reassurance or backup, it has this little psychic on the other side, and they have like 1 billion connections, so they can communicate really quickly between each other. The problem with the dyslexic brain is it has 2 humongous language centers. We're talking like double the size of a normal language center in the brain, and there's 2 of them, one on either side of the brain, and they're not interconnected. They have like 1 million connections instead of 1 billion connections, so they don't really communicate with each other, but they operate at an incredibly high standard for each side. So I've always explained it as, they're like 2 massive overachievers having a dick measuring contest. So that creates several different things for the way that my brain operates. One, dyslexias operate in 3 dimensions, not 2 dimensions. So, and the easiest way to explain that is that when you think of a cat, this is a classic sort of dyslexia test. Think of a cat. Now, in your head, can you explain to me what you thought of when you thought of a cat?
Just like, I don't know, like a ginger cat.
What's it? Explain how you see it.
Well, this is quite funny. I can't picture things. So you know when people say picture that, like if I close, I can't see it. I just know what it is.
Okay, so
bad example.
So no. But so like the normal thing is like people say, well, you see a cat, like it, and you go, well, explain it, and they're like, well, it's sat there. It's a ginger cat. When you talk to a dyslexic person, they're like, oh, there's the cat walking along the fence, or there's a cat walking across the garden. There's a cat. It's doing something. It's not a static image. It's physically doing something.
Okay.
Because the way we remember things is we remember it in 3 dimensions. So when you transfer that over to the written language, which is a 2-dimensional picture, one side of the brain's going, that's a B, and then the other side of the brain's going, no, that's a D. No, that's actually a P. No, that's actually a Q. Your brain's picking up that 2-dimensional picture and looking at it in different ways. And because those 2 sides of the brains look at things very differently, dyslexics have much better mental recall. One, because we're not remembering factual images, we're remembering stories, and we're remembering things that happened. So our mental recall is much faster. That's why you'll see, that's why teachers think dyslexic kids are like top student, because if you ask them a question, they'll be the first to put their hand up, because that speed their brain's operating at, because there's 2 different parts of the brain doing things, and sometimes they're doing it together and sometimes they're doing different things, which means they have much better spatial recognition. So that's why lots of graphics designers, they're dyslexics. Lots of architects, dyslexics. The other thing that means is that we also don't focus on smaller details. We are much better at seeing much larger pictures and how things fit into diagrams easily. That's why you see a lot of like CEOs of big companies. They're often dyslexic, because they'll say they're not focusing on small details. They're focusing on the big picture of the company, because the way they put that information together, that it's like jigsaws. They're putting the jigsaw together whilst you're still looking at the picture, because our brains work very quickly, and they work in random directions as well, because my brain never quiets, and that's always the big thing for me, is trying to quiet my brain, and I do a lot of that through physical exercise. I mean, like going to sleep at night is an absolute nightmare for me. Like the second I lay down on the pillow, it's like lighting the fuse. Like oh yeah. I start thinking and I start processing information from the day. That's the other thing as well, is dyslexics are known for taking a lot more information from their surroundings, so they get very overstimulated very quickly. So I struggle to maintain a conversation with people, because I start looking around, because my brain can't focus for that long on something without starting to, there's a light over there, there's lights flashing there, my brain takes an awful lot of information, so I get overstimulated very, very quickly. I hate going to concerts. I hate musicals. I hate lots of loud noises, fireworks displays, that sort of thing, because it just massively overstimulates me. And so, yeah, my dyslexic brain has sort of created this world where I need to be doing something for the calm. So my meditative state is not sat there working on my breathing work. It's out doing things, working my hands, moving my body, that physical exercise, and sort of being aware of what my body's doing and what's going on around me and what's in front of me, and I just need that stimulation to find peace.
Yeah.
So when you say, how did adventure find you, I go back to I'm just doing things. If I'm not doing things, I am in a world of pain.
Yeah. I find it interesting that you're saying about the thing that most people would describe as a sort of hindrance to you, that sort of neurodivergence of I'm dyslexic, and they'd look at that and be like, oh, like, it must be hard, like, and they'll instantly, people are looking at the negatives, and especially like there's a lot of people out there who take it as a negative if they've got it, like if they've got any sort of like ADHD or autism or like mental health issues, they're like, oh, like these are like the negatives, and you focus on that, but you're like, this is like almost like my superpower.
Yeah.
And you've just like been like, well, it means that I don't do this stuff, like the concerts, firework displays, and you're like, oh, I don't do that stuff, but I'm not bothered by that, like, get me outdoors.
Yeah.
And then you've just found, or it's almost not like you found it, but you've sort of built your life around that and been like, this is my thing, like that's where I'm sort of most comfortable, and you've just made it work for you. I think that's really important to have that.
Yeah, but there's a lot of things as well though, like I am a true technophobe. Like I wouldn't be able to do a lot of what I do at work if it wasn't for technology, but like I find I'm a real sort of like, I find it quite overly aggressive, the modern world, towards the drive towards technology, and I think it's a true, we've got big disasters coming our way. Things like social media, things like reliance on the internet, reliance on mobile technology. It's a massive recipe for disaster, and we are throwing ourselves at it with the blinkers on big time. And I just, anyone who's been out with me and like running, like I'm a map and compass guy. In fact, I don't even take a map anymore. Like I'm just, my friend Laurie, I remember her saying, I remember doing a race with her and I just stopped middle of the trail. We're not going the wrong way. She's like, oh, his spidey sense is going off again. And that sort of, because I look at the map of the race before, regardless of its distance, and I've got a pretty good idea of where I have to go. And I'll remember that. Yeah. So like when the first year Reece Jenkins put on the wild horse races, we did all 3 back to back. I had a crappy sports watch that only had 4 hours battery life, so I couldn't use the GPS on it. So it was like a real emergency. I think in the 600 miles of running, Jane turned it on 5 times. I just did everything straight off the seat of my pants, because I looked on the map. I go, right, you follow those trail markers for that route, and then so like Wild Horse, South Wales, straight up the Offers Dyke, above Lantony Priory, hang a left onto the Beacons Way, follow those markers, and then you go up on the Cambrian Way, over Winevark, back down, you're back on the Beacons Way, into Crickhowell, on the Beacons Way, all the way around there. When you get to Pontstick, hang a left, you go around Pontstick Reservoir, back onto Beacons Way, or back onto Pontstick, back up, onto the canal, into Brecon, then onto the Beacons Way, over Penavan, and that follows all the way out to Castle Kennig. There's one right-hand turn on top of one of the hills that I knew was going to be a bit awkward, because I'd never been there. And then once you get onto that, you're on the heartline of that, the Wales markers. You run all the way down to the coast. When you hit the coast, hang a left onto the coastal path, all the way to the finish. And in my head, that made total sense. And people just can't get why not. And I'm like, yeah, but every time you go past a junction, there's a marking. And I love doing trail camps, because there's one coming in the Black Mountains. There's one where you come down the length of the side of this wall, and everyone stops at the end of the wall, because the wall stops and the route goes in about 3 different directions. And the amount of people, because I always Reece gets me in for some of his running camps to teach trail nav, and I just always let everyone go, and then I wait about 100 yards off, and the amount of people who stood there, and there's 3 different directions, and they're all looking at their watches, discussing which direction they're going in, and there's a massive finger post about 5 inches above their head, and no one looks up and go, oh, it's that way. And it's just one finger post in one direction, but the trail splits into 3, and the amount of times, and I've done it probably 3 years running, and everyone stops and argues at that point. And you're just like, just look up, because people don't, like, there's a trail marker, we go that way. And it's amazing how, and the one that always shocks me is on those courses, like people, you look at the trail marker and they point in the direction you're supposed to go, and no one knows that. It's like, but that's just everywhere across Britain. We have these little discs on stiles, and sometimes they're a bit wonky because they're sending you in a direction. Those trail markers, if they're turn 45 degrees to the right, when you go over the stile, it's that way, not straight on, that way. The amount of people that's like, their heads are blown by that. And like, yeah, all the footpaths, farmers do not want you on their land. They will do their best to guide you off their land. So why wouldn't you follow the markers? And just because people are so reliant on the GPS, they just completely forget there's a whole world around them that's actually pointing them in the direction they need to go, and they just don't look up.
Yeah, I've been having this chat a lot recently, where it's like, what do you do before Strava? Like, what do you do before you had GPXs? Because everyone's like, oh, I can't go on a run without my watch on. And you saying like, oh, when I did the Wild Horse and I like had 4 hours battery life, so I'm turning it on and off. And it's like, where's your Strava stats? Like, have you even done it? Like,
no. They're not on Strava.
It's not official. You haven't done it. It's not on your Strava. Like, but that's how a lot of people's brains work these days. It's like, oh, it's got to be on Strava. It's got to be logged. I need my stats. I need to compare like every year and see how it's going. And it's like, what would you do before that? Like, where's the adventure in that? Like, I always compare, because it's Adventure Athletes, the brand, and it's always like, well, the adventure is that side that you're on about, where it's like, well, you look at the way markers and you look at maps and you figure it out, and you might get lost, but like, that's part of it. And then there's the athlete side, which is all like, all stats and training and everything's got to be perfect. And it's just like, everyone seems to be going more to the athlete side and taken away from the adventure bit. Like, it's a spectrum in my eyes, and it's trying to blend the two is quite difficult, I think. but
they're so integral.
Yeah.
Like, if people are focusing on the athlete side really bugs me that like everyone, I'm like, when people get really psyched out by races and stuff, and like, if you ever saw me on race day, I'm like, I'm smiling, I'm happy, I never look stressed, because it's for fun. Are you being paid for it? Like, is your income dependent on winning this race? And I can guarantee you, for 99% of people on any race, that's a no. Then you're doing it for fun. And people forget that. Like, we go out and put ourselves through these mentally and physically traumatic events with some of these ultras. They're so long. Like, my big thing is really long races, because you can never plan for what's going to happen. A 50k, I mean, that's a little bit of fun. Like, it's a day job. Like a 50 miler, that's a day job. 100 miler for most of the time is a day, maybe day and a half, maybe two at a push. Like, you know, we're paying for that to happen, and everyone focuses on the outcome. They're chasing, a lot of the time they're chasing a time, they're not chasing the distance. They're racing the time, not the distance, which is just totally the wrong way to do those things, because your mental and physical need to meet in the middle to do races like that. And if you're just focusing on one side of that, like you say, like the adventure athlete, really the mental side is the adventure and the athlete is the physical side, and that's probably like 10% to actually completing the ultra. I mean, look how many people on the start line look like a professional athlete compared to a normal person, and I can guarantee you most people look like a normal person. You go to a road like a road marathon like Manchester or London, or there's a lot of racing snakes there. There is a lot of athletic looking people, but I guarantee you they do not have the mental strength to do an ultra, whereas a normal person has the mental strength but not the physical attributes of of that athlete doing London. But because they have that mental strength, they have way more of an advantage over those athletes, because adventure athlete is about the mental and the physical meeting and combining them. And I suppose that's one of my superpowers that I've always had, is that genuinely don't care if I don't finish the race. And so many people, I mean, I get really, really upset when people are like, they've got that attitude of like death before DNF. Like, no, you're not learning from that. You are not physically and mentally pushing yourself hard enough to be like that. You are literally getting yourself into a point where you're just focusing on your physical attributes. That sort of, again, this is that drive for modern world. Like, it's the way you look, the way you act has to be of a certain thing to like get clicks on Instagram. I mean, I saw a stat the other day that like most people don't watch a video for longer than 3 seconds before scrolling. And I'm like, what are we doing to our world if we are literally have a 3 second attention span? I mean, that's horrific on so many levels. And the fact that we are teaching our kids and the next generation about that's what we want. I mean, it's just wrong. I mean, that's sort of, yeah, I don't know really where I'm going with this, but like the physical and mental thing has to mesh well. But the mental power and strength is so much greater than the physical, is unreal. And if you're signing on to a race, you're paying money for that. You are paying someone to put you through that. So why not enjoy it? And I mean, when I rock up at a race, I am there to have fun. Like, I mean, it is to have fun. I mean, I'm not getting paid for it. I'm not making money from it. I have no ability or care to make money from it. This is literally my time away from my work and my family life. So this is my time to be myself. So I've got to enjoy it and I've got to be myself. And that's lost in the message these days, big time. Absolutely big time. I don't know if you get that through working with people, but they probably want to hit a time or they want to finish a race. And I don't know, what would you say is the difference between those two goals?
This is something that I've been debating with myself a lot recently, to be honest. I'm trying to find a way for the two to coexist, because I'm not even sure if it's possible for the two to coexist in the same person. Because I started off, the way I got into ultras was I watched the Barkley documentary, and that's an adventure.
Yeah.
That is 100% the adventure, mental side like you're on about. You have to have the physical attributes, but you can take the fucking most naturally gifted phenom of an athlete, put them in the Barkley and they're fucked.
So, do you know Ben Wernick?
Yeah.
So, have you had him on here before?
No, I want to get him on.
Yeah, so I know Ben and I respect Ben. But when I heard he was doing the Barkley, I remember Reese telling me, he's doing the Barkley. And sorry, Ben, if you're out there. The first thing I said, well, he'll do shit at that. And Reese was like, why? He's one of the best runners I know. He's one of the best runners you know. I remember him on Wild Horse. And just his attitude was he didn't have a plan B. Barkley Marathon is not about plan B. It's about plan Y, plan Z. You need to have so many different coping strategies for when things go wrong, and that's the one thing people don't. I mean, I never plan to finish the race. So why? Because I plan. Yeah. So the people don't have enough. They've got plan A. They might have plan B, but they don't have plan C, D, F, Y, G, whatever. You know, because people plan to. I want to do this race, and I want this to happen and that to happen. But when I turn up to a race, I'm not planning to finish the race. I'm planning to go out there and have a laugh. I want to talk to some people. If I want to run, I'll run. If I want to walk, I'll walk. If I want to stuff my face with food, I'll stuff my face with food. But all of those things have to trickle down into your training, which people don't do enough of. Like, people think I'm mad when they hear some of the things I do for training. This week's been great because I've had one of the guys I work with. He's one of our part-time instructors. Really strong, capable guy. And I had him out trail running. He's normally a cyclist, does a lot of rock climbing, he's the next sort of rugby player, and really physically great trainer, like goes to the gym every day, really strong. And now I had him in the running round the woods near me one night this week. because he's really big into barefoot running. And I was like, all right, if you want to be big into barefoot running, come running with me. And everyone goes, oh, you're too fast. I'm not a fast runner. Anyone who's ever run with me, I can be at the back of the group or I can be at the front of the group. And I normally like being at the back because I can watch what people are doing. So I had him out running at night in the pitch black through the woods, and I wouldn't let him put his head torch on. He's like, well, how am I supposed to see anything? It's like, feel it. Come on, you're a barefoot runner, feel it. And he was like, and he was just like, why are we running in the dark, Nick? And I was like, that's not me, that's a tree you're talking to. I'm 100 metres ahead. Oh, right, sorry. And then like after about 10 minutes, he was like, oh, this is really good. He said, high knees, you're getting all the feeling. Because it's like, you're so used to running with a head torch, but what happens when your head torch stops working? And I mean, I know like UTMB and stuff make you carry 2 head torches, but I literally go out at night and turn my head torch off and train at night in the dark, in the woods, up a hill, whatever, because what happens when your head torch breaks? I do training runs like, I pick the dullest half marathon I can, which is up and down the canal for me in Brecon. I hate it with a passion. So on Friday night, I used to put my daughter to bed. I'd go out, run the half marathon, come back. So my daughter would go to bed by 6:30, 7:00. I'd go out, I'd do a half marathon, come back in about 9:00, 9:30, sit down with my wife, have a cup of tea. She's watching something on the telly, and then she'd be, all right, I'm going to bed. I'd kiss her goodnight. I'd put my shoes back on and do the half marathon again. Because that trains that ability to come into a checkpoint where it's nice, warm and cozy, you're sheltered, you're safe, that feeling of relief of finishing that section and then going out and doing it again. And I'd pick a particularly dull run that I would not want to do, flat, roady, whatever, I just hate that sort of thing. And so I'd do that, and then I'd spend literally like an hour in between and then do it again. And people are like, why? I'm like, because it's the psychological training, it's not physical. Run in the dark, so I do psychological training like that. I was always taught that you should always try and do one thing every day you do not want to do. And it could be getting into a cold shower, like finishing your run, like particularly in winter is a great time to do it. You come in from a long run, and then I will get straight into a cold shower. And I stand there and I have to count to 60. I don't want to do it because it's horrible. I'm cold, I'm wet and miserable. I want to get into a warm shower. I'll get in and do 60 seconds in the cold shower, because that psychological barrier of doing something you don't want to do is really important. And that psychological game is much, much more powerful to my training than it is to go out and run 100 miles a week. I tend to run maybe 30 miles a week, but I'm rattling things off like 3 wild horses in a row on 30 miles, 50k a week. And Reese was like, but how? And I was like, well, I do some gym work, I do my 50k a week, but I'm doing psychological training. It's way more important. And then when I actually got onto the races, I was actually physically in much better state than most of the people. That's why on the first race, the first race, I broke Bob. He basically finished with like a shin splint that split his shin in half and had to have a year off. The first race he did back was the Beacons Way, which I did with him, and he only got halfway. Sorry, Bob, you only got halfway before he bottled it again. And I went from 70th place to 10th place on that race, on the Beacons Way. It's the year that Ali Bailey always goes on about, because it rained so hard that she had wet underpants for more than 12 hours, so she quit. Me, no, bad weather. I'm psychologically prepared for that. I just double down, and that's when things get fun for me. Like when I'm really pushing hard, that psychological game, that's when I come alive. If I get to a flat section, I start pulling off the gas because I'm like, this is going to be dull. Yeah. And I don't want to do it. But when it's like hammering down with rain, super windy, like snow on the ground, you're looking at a big climb into the unknown, I'm like, that's the game. That is the game. Yeah. But yeah, and I'm always there to have fun as well. And that's why, like on Dan the other day when we come back from Divide, he came on your podcast and said, I thought Nick was clean cut. Yeah, I can be a serious, intense guy. I admit that. But my wife also describes me as, if he's breathing, he's taking the piss. So, like, I'm always the one who'd be taking the piss. I've probably offended people way too much in the past. But again, that's a psychological thing. You can't care what other people think. You can't care about that. You can never affect anyone's thoughts about you. You can only affect the way you are towards other people. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm open, I'm truthful, I try not to be mean in any way. I try to be caring and loving and support anyone in their endeavours, regardless of what it is. If they want it, you can only help them. You should never hinder anyone, unless it physically affects you or the ones you love. So so for me, is that psychological training is far more important.
Yeah.
And doing really stupid things. And I've done some mad stuff. So
is there a place for that sort of athlete side of like, well, I want to do this adventure, like 100 miler, 200 miler, but I want to like aim for podium and things like that? Like,
oh yeah, gotcha. I mean, there's, of course there is. I mean, for me, time is the precious gift that all of us have, and it's what you have to decide what you want to sacrifice to get what you want. For me, the biggest sacrifice I make is time away from my family. My number one priority in this world is, and my number one job in this world is looking after my daughter. Pardon me. My daughter is my world, and me being here today, I'm not with her. So this is a sacrifice I've made. And I don't think enough people understand that. If you want to be on a podium, you have to sacrifice the time. You have to put that training in. You have to structure your life around that. I haven't got the time to do that. My wife is self-employed. She owns her own business. She works all weekend. At weekends, I have my daughter. So Saturdays and Sundays are my days with my daughter. I can see that my daughter's turning into a daddy's girl. I haven't got a problem with that. I love my little girl to pieces. But, so it's understanding what you sacrifice to get what you want. There's only two ways to get anything in life. And that is either you pay someone to do it for you, or you do it yourself. You either learn to do it yourself, and that goes for everything. So you want a nice house, you got to pay for it, or you build it yourself. You got to learn to build it yourself. You got to learn how to build a house. You've got to you want to win a race. You train for it. Well, how do you train? You either pay someone to do it for you, like yourself. You get someone to build a program for you and get you to stick to it, or you learn how to do it yourself. You go away. You read on what's the difference between a tempo session, and a fart leg. You know, what is lactate threshold? How do I train it? How do I improve my VO2 max? Those sort of things. I have never been money orientated in my life. I have a pretty low paid job. My wife is self-employed. The two of us barely make any money. The one thing that we are super rich in is time. I finish at 4:30 every day, and I finish at 1 o'clock on a Friday. I pick my daughter up on a Friday, and I spend all weekend with my daughter most of the time. And that is a way more important job than me ever doing any race. If you want to win a race, I'll support you in that. I can help you in that. But it's about sacrifice, and people have to be realistic about what they're willing to give up to get what they want. If you want to be serious about it, but never forget you've always got to maintain a sense of humour.
Yeah.
And that will always help you.
Because that's what I've really been trying to learn recently, and this is why I've been having this debate with myself, right? Because, like I said, I got into ultras because I saw the Barkley Marathons documentary, and I was like, the fact that they have to like swap out for like those old Casio watches and things like that, and map and compass, and you're finding books in the forest and ripping pages out. I'm like, that's an adventure. That's what I want to get into. And then I signed up for OTT, and I rock up, and I've come from like the sort of strength training background, so everything's measured, and it's like, well, this week I'm putting an extra 1.25 kilos on my deadlift, and next week I'm going to add another 1.25, or I'm going to do an extra rep or an extra set, and it's that very structured, like boom, boom, boom. So I went in and I did fuck all training for it, because I was like, this is an adventure. But in my head I was also like, but I want to win. I came dead last, but I went in with the attitude of, I'm going to win this race. No place winning a race ever. And then from that, and then I did it again like a few years later. And then I started getting to know other people, and I got sucked into that sort of, oh, you could be good at this. Like, you should be trying to win races, and you should be running this much a week and following your stats. And I got really... I'm really addictive personality, so I'm like, yeah, like stats, and I got so into it, and then I took it so seriously, and then I hated it for ages. Like, I would turn up to races, and halfway through the race, like, people are like, oh, you're running well, and I'm like, oh, fuck it, this sucks, like, I fucking hate this, why am I here? But like, I'm still pushing. And in my head it was also like the whole Goggins thing of like, well, it's got to suck, like, it's got to suck for you to do it, like, that's the point of doing it, is because it's shit. And then I like started running with people like Plod, and he's like, full value, like, be last, get like as close to the cut-offs as you can, make your money's worth from it. And he's like, yeah, we're gonna do a fun bus. And I never really got the fun bus until I did my 6 ultras back to back. And even on like days 3 and 4, like, end of day 4, at the end of the Piggum, it was the bit where you're running down off of the last mountain, you're coming into Abergavenny, and then it's all road. I was doing like 4-minute kilometers because I was like, in my head, I'm like, this is gonna be shit, and like, I'm gonna suffer, but like, I want to push it and I want to do well, and I'm like sprinting into the finish. And then day 5 I get injured, and I can barely walk, and I'm fucking sat in a ditch crying, being like, I don't think I can keep going anymore. Everyone's passing me. Like, I was top 10 until the first checkpoint on day 5 of an ultra, because it's just in my head, I'm like, I'm racing, like, that's what I'm here for, I'm pushing. Absolutely break myself. And I just remember sitting in this ditch and my mate's with me and he doesn't know what to do. He's like patting me on the back, being like, oh, it's okay, Willa. Like, we can stop. And I'm like, we got 70 miles to go, because like, we've got 40 miles more of the Edam and then Ridham tomorrow. I was like, we got 70 more miles. Like, I'm going to fucking finish this. I was just like, I just don't know how yet. And the next thing I know, Plod comes round the corner, fucking singing and dancing. And he's just like, fuck up, Will, the fun bus is here, let's go. And as miserable as it was going through that was the best day of the 6, getting to just go through, because we had Andrew join us as well, and he gave me his poles. So it's me, Andrew, Plod, and George, just fucking having a blast of a time. 21 hours to do the event, I'm pretty sure, and it's just like, it was shit because I was in so much pain, but it was just the fun bus. What an experience. And now I'm just like, I was talking to Dan about it, and he was like, you can fun bus from the front, like,
yeah, of course you can.
Just because
you can fun bus from anywhere.
Yeah, he was like, it doesn't have to be at the back of the race to have a fun bus. And now I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to do well and perform well, because I like performing well. I like the physical attributes of being an athlete. As much as I hate calling myself an athlete, like, I do want to be an athlete, but I also like that adventure and that fun.
So I just remember Rhys Jenkins calling me an absolute moron, because I still, even to this day, still never view myself as a runner, even though in reality I'm pretty quick, but I suppose I never really give that enough time to sort of sink in, because like, I always remember on the North Wales 200 Wild Horse that we were in a 3 and we started in last place, because it was a really hot day and everyone went flying off across the first 50k dead pancake flat. So, and I just remember saying to Pete and Gordon, and I was like, look, we should run walk it, do a mile running, 1 mile walking. We were in dead last. And then fast forward 4 days and Gordon's completely shot. We're trying to hunt down Henry Drake for second place. And Pete and I are laid on our stomachs, commando crawling through a pitch black woodland, because we could see his head torch off to the left, and we're running through, because we basically, what happened is we started just knocking people off, and we kind of like made a bit of a game of it. And then, and Henry, I love Henry. Henry is my arch nemesis, and I will always say that to my dying day. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like the two of us, I know he'd jump in and help me if I needed it, and he'd do. I do the same for him. I have done several times. But on that race, I just remember saying, Henry beat me. Like, we leapfrogged on the first wild horse, and I really struggled because I was with Bob and we were walking, and Henry could run, but he'd just like get into the checkpoint, have a load of sleep, and then spend ages in the checkpoint faffing, and then I'd be out the door with Bob, and then he'd overtake us, and we'd leapfrogged all the way through it. And I just remember explaining this to Pete and Gordon, which we'd become mates by then because we'd done, it's our second 200 miler as a three, and they was like, fuck Henry. So we were going to beat Henry, and so we were running. We'd literally, like, he'd just come out checkpoint, the last checkpoint, and we were coming into the last checkpoint. I remember pulling in to the checkpoint, and we're spending 15 minutes maximum in the last checkpoint. So we got in, swapped our shoes, and like Reese is trying to talk to us, and it's like, Reese, go away. I need to get my foot strapped up. Why do you need to get your foot strapped? Because I bust my ankle. When did you bust your ankle? Oh, about 30 miles into the race. And he's like, it's like 150 miles ago, Nick. And I'm like, yeah, no. My maths is not right on that. I'm sorry. But yeah, the sort of, we went flying out the door. So Henry knew we were coming into the checkpoint. He thought we were going to sleep. So he comes out the checkpoint, and he's like a mile from the checkpoint. We have got into the checkpoint, done our stuff, turned around and got out the door. And we are now a mile apart. And Henry's gone, shit. So he starts pegging it. So we come out the checkpoint. We start seeing he's starting to move it. We're like, that's not going to happen. So we start pegging it. And we have this like battle for the last 25 miles, and we see this head torch off to our left, and we're like, Henry's messed up because we're in a dead zone. You can't look at your phones or the trackers or anything. So we're like, there's a head torch over there. So we are running up this hill, and it was a hill, and we could see a break in the tree line further up. I'm like, Pete, let's jump out on him. So we're running up the hill. I'm like, switch your head torch off. So we're running in the dark, and then it's like we're nearly at the break. So then we're on our bellies, commando crawling for this like gap, to jump out, break his commitment to the cause. And because he was sprinting so hard, bless him, he was doing like 5K best effort. We're like, we'll jump out, we'll scare him, and run off into the woods, and like it'll all be good. And like, so we are commando crawling, pissing ourselves laughing, we're making loads of noise. And so we're like, we get to this like break in the wood line, we jump out, we're like, Henry, and then we realise it's not a head torch, it's like a light on the other side of the valley, some farm or a street lamp or something. We're like, oh shit, come on Gordon, we gotta run. Head torches went back on, and we're like full tilt sprinting through the woods then. And I just remember like absolutely laughing our asses off laying on the floor. And I'm like 4 days ago we were in dead last, and now we're fighting for like second place. and it just, and like Gordon's like, we should go for the win. We're like, Mark's already finished. He's won the race. And Gordon was like in his adult state was like, well, why can't we win it then? Because he's already finished. Like, okay, we've got to get Henry first. And just that sort of. So yeah, I think you can have the fun bus up the front.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a game at the end of the day. It's a psychological, physical, whatever you want to. Yeah, but you've got to enjoy it. Like, there's you saying like, oh, it's going to be crap. Like that. I've got a real thing for David Goggins. I just don't like the guy. I'm sure he's a really nice guy, and he's inspired millions, and I cannot deny that. But his attitude of like, it's got to be painful. No, it doesn't have to be painful. It's having an expectation of what you've got to give. It's that sacrifice thing again. I think of all the best races I've ever had, and all the worst races I've ever had, and I suppose I never focus on the really bad stuff. You always got to focus on the positives, and that's a really naff thing to say because a lot of people really struggle to focus on what the positives are, and I suppose that is the battle of what is positive and what is negative. But suffering is part of the positive. You got to change your thoughts about suffering, because why are you suffering? You're suffering because you're trying to push for third place or first place or be a podium or win the race. You've got to suffer for that, which is part of that sacrifice you've got to give. You've got to learn how to deal with that. I suppose I'm good at the suffering. I'm really good at the suffering. I studied it at university. Like that is, do you know how I got into ultra running? Has anyone ever told you how I got into it? So, so you got in because you watched the Barkley documentary. I got into ultra running because I got smashed playing Halo 3, and I just ended up an ultra runner by accident. So, and people just look at me like, well, how did that happen? It's like, right. So, I lived with two guys up in Yorkshire in 2009, and one was called Chris, and he was a fell runner, and another one was called Dean, and he was a triathlete, and those two would time each other on how fast they could butter their toast in the morning. They were competitive over everything, and we got drunk playing Halo. So we just got a copy of Halo 3. I loved Halo as a game, and we were drinking little stubbies of beer, and the game was you put it on the hardest setting, you play, when you die you pass the controller to the next person, nail a stubby. One thing led to another. I woke up the next morning, not sure how I got to bed. They were like, did you sign up for that race? What race? Well, we're doing that 40-mile ultra marathon across the Peak District. What? And I signed up for the race. I got a month. I don't even own running shoes. Like, I've never run. Like, this running's not something I do. I'm a rock climber because that's what I was working as, a rock climbing instructor. So I remember going out and I ran down to Hebden Bridge and back from Todmorden where I was living, which is 4 miles there, 4 miles back, 8 miles on a canal in approach shoes. And I was like, it's not that hard. How hard can this be? So I bought a pair of running shoes. 3 weeks later, stood on the start line in Buxton, and I just remember those two like flying off at the start, and I just went bumbling along. And yeah, and that to me, that day, those two, everyone knew they could run, and everyone we worked with, because we all three of us worked at the same centre, and at the centre, everyone was like, oh, Dean's going to win that. Well, I think Chris might have an edge on him. It's fell running. He's a fell runner. It's an ultra, and it's around the Peak District. There's just under 4,000 metres of climbing on it. It's a 40-miler. My name wasn't even mentioned. And at halfway, well, just mile 23 is halfway, Chris is unconscious in the verge by the checkpoint. I'm like, Chris, what happened? Oh, mate, I got heat exhaustion. I've been throwing up. And I was like, oh, where's Dean? Oh, Dean's like an hour and a half ahead of you, 2 hours ahead of you. He's looking really strong. Okay. And then I remember running with these two old guys from Manchester, and they were like in their 70s, and they were like proper old school runners. And I got to the top of this checkpoint. It's about 32 miles into the race, and it's this long drag about 2 miles uphill to this checkpoint, which is just a couple of chairs in a field, really. And they were handing out jelly babies and like little cups of juice. This is back way before ultra running was ever classed as sexy. Yeah, and I remember pulling up, and Dean was sat at the checkpoint, and he was like head down between his legs, and he looked up at me, and he's like, all right, hi, Nick, and then just jumped up and ran off. And these two old guys looked at me, and they were like, get in, don't bother stopping at this checkpoint, get in behind him. You're on the hell road now. Do not get further or closer than 200 metres from him. Okay, so I set off, and what I realised, the hell road is 5 miles of road, and it just goes every couple hundred metres, it just goes up and down like this. So when I was cresting the hill, he was at the bottom of the next hill. He'd look over his shoulder and then sprint up the hill. He'd get over that hill, and then I'd go out of sight. So then he'd slow down and start walking because he was in bits. And then I'd crest the hill, and he'd look, oh shit! So because his competitiveness got better of him, and this is a big lesson for me. So you get 5 miles of this, like this, every couple hundred meters, and then you get to a thing called the Deepdale. So it's this big gorge. You've got to scramble down one side. It's about 100 meters down to the bottom, and 100 meters up the other side. And you're 3 miles from the end of the race because there's a checkpoint at the top of the Deepdale on the other side. So you scramble down, and Dean was on all fours, throwing his guts up all over the floor. He'd gone green, like when humans are really not in a good way. And I remember getting to the bottom of the Deepdale, and I looked down at him, and I was like, "You're right, Dean." And he looked up at me, and he was green. He was like on all fours in a pool of his own vomit, and he was like, "No, I'm not. How are you?" And I was like, I'm fucking amazing. And I sprinted as hard as I could up to the top of Deepdale where he could see me. And I sprinted, got to the top, got to the checkpoint. I didn't even bother. I just said, what if they asked my number? I was like, I'm just going straight to the finish. And I did, because it was when at the end of the race, you get like a little printout. And that last 3 miles I did in 21 minutes. And because I just got past him and I just did not look back. I just put my head down, put the chomp between my teeth and just went for it. And I just remember, because Dean's girlfriend was driving us home. That was one of the best bits of this whole conversation. And so Chris and his girlfriend, who I can't remember her name, they were waiting at Buxton High School, which has got this beautiful, like, 1/4 mile drive, like trees down either side because it's a private school. And I came round the corner, and there's everyone sort of like coming up, and I was like Forrest Gump, you know, hands up, full tilt sprinting. I overtook about 30 people coming up to the finish line. People were standing and clapping. And I came over the finish line and said, that was amazing. That was absolutely amazing. And Chris is like, halfway, he was nearly 2 hours ahead of you. Where's Dean? I was like, he was at the bottom of the deep dale throwing his guts up last time I saw him. And another 45 minutes it took him to like catch up. There's nearly just over an hour to do those last 3 miles, which I'd done in 20 minutes. And yeah, and that was like my first ever ultra, and I was like, I quite like this actually. Like that was a good laugh. And then I started doing some other races. I'd done like the I did some mountain marathons, because ultra running wasn't really a big thing then. There was UTMB. There was a couple of other like really, really long, but the shorter stuff didn't really exist then. There was only a few 30 milers and a couple of 50 milers, but really like there was the Highland Fling was probably like the biggest 50 miler in the country at that point. There was the West Highland Way. There was a lot of these big ultras didn't exist back then. So yeah, I didn't do a lot of it for a while, and then after having kids, I got way more into it. Probably a bit before having kids actually, but sort of 2015, because I'd been doing like a lot of other styles of races, doing adventure races and mountain marathons and those sort of multi-day bits and pieces, and then yeah, probably 2016 I started really getting into doing more ultras. But then I discovered that I needed that adventure in my life, and having kids and sort of saying to my wife, well, I'm going to the Alps for 6 weeks, I couldn't do that anymore. So but I can go run 100 miler for a weekend. Any chance I can have a couple of days off this weekend, come in and just quickly rattle off a 200 miler? Like that's what I view it as, because I give up a weekend here and there to get that adventure, because I need that experience in my life of just really pushing myself physically and mentally. I need that to be me, because giving up, like, I mean, I haven't really rock climbed outdoors since having my daughter, and she's 8 in January, and that was like a big switch went in my head. I mean, I have climbed all over Europe. I've done things, East Pillar of the Troll Wall. I've been, winter alpine routes up Mont Blanc. Like, I mean, I've done an awful lot of very dangerous stuff prior to having kids. The second I had my daughter, all of that stopped, and I needed to replace that with something. Because I need to get out and do things. I need to be doing something. I mean, it's not about doing something dangerous. It's just about doing something physical with my mind, body, and soul. So, God, this has been really serious. Everyone normally sees me as sort of a bit of a laugh, a joker, taking the piss, sort of. There's an awful lot of thought behind everything I do, and I don't think people realise that. I'm very, very good at breaking things down in my head and looking at analysing little bits very, very deeply. Yeah. And I do that at an incredible speed, which I don't think people realise. Sort of like I'm looking at the clouds, how they're moving and what they look like. I'm looking at the ground conditions. I'm looking at wind direction. I'm looking at the way I feel, the way my legs feel, how what my heart rate's doing. All of these factors I take into account every time I take a step. But at the end of the day, it comes down. There's a saying from Dean Karnazes I love, which is you just have to make the next step as best you can, and that's what ultra running boils down to for me. It's just about putting that next step in. Because if you get the next step and then you work on the next one, the finish line will eventually turn up. Yeah. You just gotta stick it out.
Yeah. I always think that the people that are seen to be the biggest sort of like jokers and everything are the ones that are the most thoughtful and calculated. And I don't know what the relationship is there between the two, but
Is it an empathy thing, maybe?
potentially, it's something I'm trying to get back to myself, because when I was I used to compete in free running and parkour. When I was that person, like, everyone knew that I trained like pretty seriously. I'd always be working my arse off, but then you'd talk to me and I'd just be joking constantly, and it was just like everything was this big joke. And then I had a lot of people that were just couldn't get the head round of how can you be having like that much fun and that much of a laugh, but you train so intense. And I've sort of stepped away from that, of like almost like having fun in a way. And it's just like,
But
I became like a very serious person, and people talk to me and I'm like, or this is my perception of how people perceive me, is like I feel like people think that I'm very like, this is how you do things, even though I'm not really. I don't know.
Well, I suppose as a coach, I'll pose this question to you: is why can't training be fun?
I always try and make it fun. I think it should be fun, because that's the biggest factor. The biggest factor in any improvement is consistency. And if you're enjoying it, you're going to be consistent at it. Like, that's why you would be consistent at it. Not many people are consistent without enjoying the thing they're doing. And if they are, then I'm like questioning why they're actually doing it. And I get there's going to be aspects of training that you don't enjoy. But when I get a lot of complaints from my clients, they're always like, oh, I fucking hate this. And I'm like, but do you really hate it? Because otherwise, why are you still here? Like, you've been with me for a year. Like, if you really hated it, you wouldn't still be coming.
Well, okay then. So what's the difference between consistency and habit? Are they training for habit or are they training for consistency? Because in my mind, I train, a lot of the training I do is because of habit. I've got into a psychological and physical state where I'm very restless if I'm not training. I mean, I'm restless sat in front of the TV. I'm a nightmare to try and finish a TV series with, unless I'm enjoying it. And my wife watches some real toffee on the box. But I struggle to sit and watch the TV. I struggle to sit in front of a screen. Like, that's, to me, I think I get very restless and start twitching. So for me, training's a habit. So that's probably why I don't really think about enjoying training. I train probably most days. I train at least once, if not twice a day. And that's different forms of training. I do weights, I do yoga, I do running. I even get out if I'm injured and I can't run, I'll go out and walk. Even going up to races, I'll stop running and go over to walking, because that's how I taper. I mean, I don't reduce the number of hours of training I do. I mean, I work in hours rather than speed and time. I do time. Today I've got to put at least an hour in. So I will walk instead of run, because that's less physically demanding, which just creates the taper for me going into a race. I don't reduce the amount of training I do. I reduce the intensity. The intensity.
So intensity over volume.
Yeah, and so I would say a lot of people, training is a habit. They're not doing it for enjoyment, because they've got into that habit, and it's a psychological habit rather than a physical habit.
On the back of that though, like, yeah, you're not focusing on the enjoyment side, but do you still enjoy it?
Well, then that comes down to how I'm training. Like, I go through periods. I never like going to the gym. That's one of the sacrifices I make. I know if I go to the gym, that will improve my durability. I'm not going to the gym to get stronger or the way I look. I am there to improve my durability for.
So you enjoy the outcome of it?
Yes, I don't enjoy that. That for me. That's, like I went back to earlier. That's the sacrifice I make. I don't like going to the gym, but yet I go religiously, twice a week minimum. I go do weights twice a week because that improves my durability. The one training session I hate, and I do it every Monday, is VO2 max. I do Scandinavian 4x4s. I do it alternate between on a rowing machine and on a ski ergo because they're very different. They're very different to running, but yet still have a lot of leg power, particularly the ski ergo because it's obviously operating in a different direction, and I just find that really is very good for balancing. Mondays, I dread Mondays, not because it's Monday, but because I got to do my 4x4s, and I hate that. That is the worst training session of all, and I am in bits afterwards. I do all of that in my lunch hour. So like I'm the kind of person like in my lunch break I'm straight in the gym. Everyone in work knows I'm either in the gym or I do a yoga class on a Wednesday. I do 4x4s on a Monday. Gym Tuesdays and Thursdays. I will move the gym. I always religiously do the gym work because I know that is the outcome of that is durability, and that's what I focus on is durability over physical output. I then run. I'd run probably 6 days a week. And running for me is short. I don't have the time to fit in a 2 or 3 hour run. So I'm going for economy of motion for my training rather than through physical ability. So just, even if it's 5K, it's always on trail. Tuesday nights is a little road run because my daughter is at karate and I have 45 minutes. And from the leisure centre in Brecon, I can go up and down the road, which is 6K. And I can do that in 45 minutes quite easily. That's my nice gentle run. I don't run on a Monday night that often. If I run on a Monday night, I have to obviously give myself a day off. I will give myself at least 1 day off a week. I've got to, because that's the one thing people never focus on is rest. Rest is the vital cog in any training load. So when I'm looking at my loads, the rests are the first thing I put in, not the last. So I always have Mondays off, even though I do the 4x4s. I don't run. That's why I try not to. I never do a 4x4 on a running machine or anything like that because I've got time in the gym. I can go do the 4x4s. That fits in quite easily for me. It's probably stupid, but anyway. But so my runs, I normally am focusing on economy of motion. So running form, running technique because I don't have enough time to build cardio base or that have the ability to put in those big training loads. I still do one session a month up at the running track, do sprint training. I do hill reps, do a hill rep session probably once a week as well. So get it all in there. I'm doing all the sort of, and I'm layering it sort of, I look over an 8-week period, and then so every 4th week is a 50% reduction in load. And then build intensity over the next. So I always work in an 8-week block. So the first week is 10% increase for the first 3 weeks with a 50% reduction on the 4th. Then it's 5% on the next 4 weeks. So I increase by 5%, 5%, 5%, then reduce by 50%. And then I restart the cycle, see where I am, what do I need to improve in. And then as I come to bigger races, I look at other things I need to work on because it's the one thing, we go back to what we said earlier, it's the one thing people don't look at is I fit my whole day around getting ready for a race. That's when do I eat? How do I eat? What do I eat? So I'm looking at, everyone in work always makes a joke that I'm always eating because I'm eating little and often to train my gut for the race. I'm looking at my sleep patterns because I always prioritize sleep over anything. So I sleep 9 to 10 hours a night. I go to bed at 9 o'clock pretty religiously. 9, half 9, you will very rarely see me past 10 o'clock. I'm always in bed and I'm gone. So focus on getting that good night's sleep. Always try and get as much rest as possible. I do have those, every 4th week is a reduction week in distance. So I'm only going out, and I mean some days I go out. I've got like a mile on the plan. Still go out and do it. But yeah. It's just a mile, and people think, what's the point in just doing a mile? But that's what the plan says, so you've got to stick to the plan. So, so I don't know, but I never seem to do massive volumes, and I look at some people that are doing huge volumes. I'm like, your tendons must really hate you, because I'm always well rested coming into a race. I'm always happy and chirpy. I don't know if that's mostly the coffee, but that's another thing. Like I look at reducing caffeine intake. I mean, Dan and I have loads of talks about caffeine. I have to have one coffee. I lived in Italy, and if I don't get that coffee, I'm a twat. I'm sorry if my daughter's watching this, but yeah, I'm a twat if I don't get that one coffee. So I've got to have that one coffee. And that's the other thing, you know, you've got those routines, some routines you should never break. That one coffee's my sort of live and die by. So yeah, like reduce the amount of caffeine so that caffeine has more of an effect during the race. So I, you know, reduce caffeine intake. I increase calorie intake. You know, I look at the amount of salt in my diet. Again, it goes back to I'm always looking at those tiny little things. And then going out, checking your pack still fits, checking that, you know, what are you carrying that's different to normal? Like, you know, going out and doing hikes with. So when I like changed to hiking, I put my poles in so that I'm, you know, used to using my poles. I use the ski ergo quite a lot because that's mimics the pole use. That's, you know, those sort of, you know, turning up on race day and you've never used a set of poles where you're not used to using the poles is just as bad. You know, you start getting problems, a lot of tension in the neck, then your form starts changing, and it's mental when I think about it. The amount of like small details that I focus on. It's, you know, I normally see myself as a pretty bad trainer. I only do like an hour a day, but I probably do 2 hours most days. Saturdays I normally have as my day off because that's day with my family. Like, you know, Sunday mornings, my daughter always goes to park run, and then I train in the evenings. I hate getting up in the mornings because I'm normally asleep till like 7. I'm normally like a zombie, so I'll be dead to the world till 7. So like I look at my friend Laurie Higgins, she's like Stevens, it's Laurie Stevens now. She's like up at like, she's like, do you want to go for a run on Saturday? Yeah. What time? Oh, should we meet at 4:30 or 5? And I'm like, fuck no. Like, I'm not getting up till this. Saturday's my only day of the week I can sleep past 6:30, 7 o'clock. I'll still be up at 7, guaranteed, because it's like clockwork. But I'll lay in bed and have a cup of coffee. You know, Millie will come in and jump in and watch something on my phone on YouTube, and I'll read a book. But like, you've got to get those little, you know, those little moments while you still can. And I don't want to be up at 4:30 in the morning running up Penavan again. Like, I just like
save that for race day.
Yeah, save that for race day. Like, yeah. So yeah, I train in the evenings. Yeah, my life revolves around it. Like, but that's where you've got to be, isn't it? You know, you've got to.
Yeah. So we've been saying about like the whole adventure athlete side of things. Your training is the athlete side of things.
Yeah.
But I think that's been really interesting because we've been talking so much about the adventure, and you're like, yeah, it's all adventure. And then you look at the daily habits that you've created because you was like, yeah, I think about what I'm eating. I think about my recovery. Like, I've got to have a rest day. I do these specific sessions. I'm doing the ski erg because that's mimicking poles. And that is the athlete side right there. That is the measured, calculated, this is what I'm doing, this is why I'm doing it. But that allows the adventure to happen. Yeah.
But it goes back to that thing people always focus on, the athlete side of thing. You've got to try and incorporate more of the adventure side in your training.
Yeah.
So like, that's me like running through the woods without a head torch at night. I've got the head torch on. I don't do it all the time. I do it in short bursts. You know, I train barefoot. People think I'm mad because I walk to work every day. I walk a mile to work and back every day in barefoot sandals all year round. And everyone's like, why are you in flip-flops? They're not flip-flops, they're sandals. They're, you know, it's a life choice. And and everyone thinks you're crazy for doing that. But that works on small muscles in my foot. That works on, you know, maintaining an elastic plantar fascia. And it works on proprioception in your foot. And also it allows your foot to wear better. And you know, it's a special occasion today coming to see you, so I've got shoes on. Like, even my wife was like, "Oh, you're doing something fancy, dear? You put a shirt on, you put your shoes on." Like, that's sort of, you know, I'm normally completely barefoot most of the day, and I only wear shoes in work because they make me. Like, so But like you say, I suppose, yeah, when I actually look at it, I do probably way more athlete-focused side of things.
But that I love that, because I've tried to explain this to people, because everyone thinks that I love training, and I'm getting to the point now where I am enjoying it more. But I've always said, like, I only train this much because it allows me to do the things I want to do. Like, I want to be able to turn up to an ultra and do all right at it. But I also want to be able to then go rock climbing the next day, or know that I could then cycle 100 miles, or go off and do this or that. And I like the fact that my training means that I can just go off and do everything. But I don't like the training side of it. Like, that's not why I train. The full respect to bodybuilders, but what the fuck? Like, you were just in the gym, especially like bodybuilders that aren't like competitive bodybuilders. They just go to the gym, and it's just like, I'm just going to the gym for the sake of going to the gym. And I'm just like, but why? You don't have to.
But is that more of a response to modern society? They've got to look. I suppose that's the big rise of like social media and stuff. We have to have our tribe, our clan, our whatever. You know, I'm a runner, I'm a bodybuilder. I have to look a certain way. I have to act a certain way for my image on. And I mean, I despair at social media. I really despair at it, because it's really. I've added it onto my list of. I've now got 4 things in my life I'm scared of, and social media is now number 4, because it changes the way people act, and it changes. I've seen a massive shift, because I've been running for 16 years on ultras, and there's such a massive shift of people being less present in the run side of things, because I mean, they're on their phones, they're taking pictures all the time. I mean, I used to despair at Laurie, who used to, I remember doing Race the Stones in 2017 maybe. She's taking a picture of every chalkboard at every checkpoint. And I'm like, we said 10 minutes to this checkpoint. You still haven't been for your wee yet, and you're 10 minutes in because you're taking pictures. And it's sort of like living the moment. For the race should be living in the moment, and everyone seems to be like trying to create content. And I know that's probably hard because I'm coming on a podcast for your content, but life isn't about content. Life is for living, and people seem to have forgotten that a bit with social media. And I just feel like some people are living through the camera, and that's that classic image of like they're looking at the incredible view through their phone. Just look at the view and take it in and take a moment. So like I always try on every race to stop and just look at a view once, or I try and stop and talk to a person once, or try and help someone once. Like, it's that giving back to the community of the people I'm in, but also you've got to just live in that race. You've got to stop. And I'm a nightmare. I never take it like my wife's sister. She made me go back on Instagram for going to the Divide this year, because she wanted people to know I'm going out and doing those things, and wanted to so that I'd have pictures and things. Because I don't even get my phone out normally on a race. I normally just do the race and come home and have a laugh. Like, getting my phone out is like there's something's gone wrong in my head. That's if I need to go out, get my phone out, like I'm because when I first started, like sometimes I put like an audiobook on. I'm a massive audiobook fan anyway, so I put an audiobook on at night, and I was like, no, I'm missing the race. I'm listening to a book, not. I'm missing the race. I'm not present in the race. Yeah. So stop doing that. I mean, and like I see all these people with headphones on and stuff, and I'm just like, why? And then, I just don't get it. And like, I think there's a time and a place for it. Like Pod, like he got his speaker out and we listened to some music when we're coming, and he's trying to psych himself up, and like. When you're with a group, that's fine. But when you're like on your own, running through the woods with the music blaring, I find that almost inappropriate, really, because use headphones. Like, the birds and the bees don't want to hear your music, regardless of what your music tastes are. Like, that's a personal thing. It should stay personal. You shouldn't be broadcasting that to the rest of the environment. Like, leave no trace. Sound is one of those things that that people seem to have forgotten is part of that leave no trace policy. Like you shouldn't be running with a big speaker, because I just remember, I think it might have been Race the Stones again, right, running along and there's like a queue of 100 people and everyone's having to listen to one guy's speaker blasting, and we're like, that's why are we listening to your music? Like, it wasn't even good. You know. So there's a time and a place. I don't know where I'm going with this now. I'm starting to ramble a bit, but yeah, but I suppose that's the other thing, that a lot of people focus on just the racing.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer, is give what I said earlier, is you've got to give back to the community as well. So a lot of people also know me from behind the checkpoints as well. So I do a lot of, particularly with Reese, I do a lot of work on those races. John Reese on OTT. You know, I volunteer at a lot of other races as well, because it's at the end of the day, it's a community, and just racing is one part of it. Volunteering is another part of it that I would encourage anyone to go out and do, because it's really amazing seeing it from another point of view. And you can never get enough point of view for anything in life. Like, you know, seeing how people are at the front and at the back of the race. And realistically, most of the RC runners are at the front because they're being a bit serious about it. Most of the runners at the back are just happy to be there, and to see that is quite interesting. And there's just so, people don't get, there's just so much more happens on an ultra compared to like a road race. Like, you know, you road runners are a strange breed in terms of they're just like head down, don't look, they just want to just hit a time, just, you know. Ultra runners are way more open, they're way more head up, looking around, talking, chatting, and experiencing a lot more. And I'd encourage anyone to do that. Anyone who's not done ultra, anyone can do an ultra. Anyone can do an ultra. It's way easier than a road race. A road marathon is way harder than what anyone can ever. I suppose because that's like the main entry drug to running. People can understand it's in the Olympics, you know, the London Marathon, the Boston Marathon, whatever. It's much more present in people's minds, and people relate to that much easier in the commonplace sort of reality. When people say, I've done a 200 miler, that's just so far beyond their understanding. But yeah, I just, why wouldn't you do a 200 miler? It's great fun. Like, I'm out there for several days with my mates, doing something stupid, because it is quite stupid, really. But it's a different type of experience, and because people can't look past the distance, they don't understand the thing around it, I suppose. Yeah.
I think bringing it back to like the whole content stuff, like this sort of works well, because you was like, everyone's sort of doing stuff for content, and like it's hard because you're coming on the podcast for content. But like I was saying to you earlier, like I just want to sit down and have a chat with someone. How often do you sit down with someone these days, have a chat with them face to face like we're doing, and there's no phones? There's no phones about. The amount of people where I could go like sit in a coffee shop with you, maybe not you, because you're probably a bad example for this, but we'd sit down and we'd be talking about probably similar things, but then someone gets their phone out and like, I've got to reply to this message, I've got to check my emails. You put them in a podcast and it's like, that's now really inappropriate. That's what I love about podcasting. Like, it is just me and you. Like, nothing else matters. Like, the fact that we're recording it to me doesn't matter. I get to sit down, and we've probably covered a lot more than we would if we were just like having a chat together. I get to have that deeper understanding and connection to you, and it's why I will never do an online podcast for adventure athletes. Like, people,
Do you mean live?
What's that?
When you say online, you mean like a live one?
Yeah, like or like Zoom.
Oh right, okay, yeah, face to face, right? Sorry, yeah, I understand.
Yeah, because one, I'm not building that same connection. Two, you've probably still got all these distractions around you, and it's just not the same. Like, I want to sit down and connect with someone. that's the point of it. If I'm doing it on a screen, and the amount of people that I've like messaged being like, oh, do you want to come on the podcast? They're like, yeah. And then they've been like, can you send me the Zoom link? I'm like, no, it's in person. And they're like, oh, I'm not traveling for it. And I'm like, that's fair enough. But like, and they're like, would you ever consider doing it online? Because I really want to come on, but like, I'm not traveling. And I'm like, no, like, it's never going to happen. And they're like, oh, I can help you with the technology if that's what you're worried about. I'm like, that is a bit of an issue for me. But also just no, like, I don't want the help. I don't want it to be technology driven. I want to sit down and connect. And it's what I struggle with running the business, because all businesses rely on social media now. And it's like, you have to post and make content, and I'm trying to do this as a living, and it's like, that's how I'm trying to earn money. So I have to build this reputation up about me not just being an athlete, but being a coach for my athletes, and sharing my wins, sharing their wins, sharing different learning points. And I have to make content, I have to put it on social media, I have to be like, oh, why did that piece of content not do as well as that, even though I enjoyed making that more. And it's this constant battle in my head, and I'm like, I just don't want to post. I want to just, and I still haven't posted about my 6 ultras in 6 days. I still haven't done it. That was months ago, and everyone's like, "Oh, you should talk about that." I'm like, I've done it. Like, it's done. I enjoyed it. I've got loads of pictures on the computer. I'm going to print a load out as well. I love having physical photos. But I don't want to post about it. It's over now.
Well, that's the human condition. You know, you've done that for you, and only you, in 50 years, you'll look back on that, and that's what I did. Like, good for you. I'm sorry, that's what I'm really trying to get to. I know it's sort of, we're going down a bit of a weird rabbit hole with this one, but I'm really old school. Like, we, as a family, there's me, my wife, and my daughter. And we sit down every day, and I have completely banned phones at dining room table. We sit down and have dinner together every day, and there's no phones. Even my daughter, she's like, and my wife's the worst for it. Sorry. She's one of those, because she runs her own business. She's on her phone constantly, but it does put a big barrier between you and another person. There's that lack of connection, and I think that's the one thing that in modern world we've got away from, is that community. We are a community of runners. You said South Wales before. Like, we all know each other, and we are all in that same community. We're a very small community in the ultra running world, and part of my dyslexia is I really struggle to remember names. I will remember your face probably till my dying day, but there is a written rule between me and my wife. It's when I'm in a group of people, loads of people come up and say, "Oh, hi Nick, how are you doing?" Shake my hand, and the rule is, if I look at her, that means she's going to have to introduce herself, because I can't remember that person's name, and I just can't be. It comes back to my dyslexia, is that I remember the person, I don't remember their name, because I remember doing that race with that person, and their name.
You can probably describe how you've met them, what you were doing, what you were talking about, maybe things like that. Oh yeah,
but I can rattle all that off, but their name is not important to the situation that I met them in, so I don't remember their name. So, and I'm a terror with names. I'm so bad at remembering names, and so my wife, if I give her the look, she knows the look. Hi, I'm Nick's wife. I'm Rachel. So she's an absolute, like, she's brilliant for that. But I am truly terrible at remembering names. But a lot of people know me because I'm either running or I'm volunteering, and I get about a bit. Sorry, Rach. But you know, but I just want people to enjoy the running. Like, I just think it's the one thing that a lot of people forget to do. Like, they get into a race and they just, like you say, they get that Goggins head down. I've got to enjoy. I've got to suffer. Like, why? We're here to have fun. Like, this is our weekend. Like, you know, we're not in work. We're not getting paid for this. Like, this is for fun. We should be having fun, and that's why, like, I suppose that's one thing we've not gone into. I've got so many stories about, like, I mean, I've done quite a lot of races, and like, I always manage to get myself in some kind of situation that is stupid, funny. Like Dan, listening to Dan's, like, account of the divide that we did. So when we rocked up, like, yeah, like it was just hilarious. Like we were totally out of water there, and like I don't think Dan realised just how dangerous it was. Like there were so many bears. like there's a thing like they sent an information pack out about this bear awareness, which is in Canada, like this Canadian bear awareness training thing. And like I read through it all, and they're like, so bears are most active at dawn and dusk. Don't go out overnight. Great, I'm running probably 3 nights minimum. Then it was like, if there's bear scat on the floor, it's probably best to avoid those areas. Okay, noted. And there's a picture of what bear poo looks like. Then there's like a section saying like, if there's areas of food sources, so they like berries, bilberry bushes, all that sort of stuff, avoid areas with large amounts of food in. Brilliant. And then it was, we left checkpoint 4 at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and we did 3 miles down a 4x4 track, which was quite open. It's a 4x4 track. And then we swung off the 4x4 track onto a trail. The sign said, "Welcome to Grizzly Trail." It is now 5 o'clock in the morning. The sky's gone to that like lightish dark blue, you know, just before the sun comes up. The bilberry bushes are so dense that the trail is probably only about 6 inches wide in some parts, with all the berries hanging off the bushes. And there's so much bear shit on the floor that you have to step in it to make progress. And it's daytime. Like, these are the 4 things it told us to avoid: early mornings, food, bear shit, and being outside during near all of those things. And I was like, this is so dangerous. There's like, and Dan's just like, well, what does bear shit look like? It's like, well, you didn't read your bear awareness thing, did you? And then when we got to the halfway point, at like the big checkpoint in the middle of the race, Dan was gone to sleep indoors and then spent like 2 hours sorting his feet out and stuff. So he's with his wife. So he's in his little bubble. I'm sat outside with the school kids telling me that they're the only school in Canada that has bear spray and gun training for the kids because they have such a bad grizzly bear problem in town. And I'm there going, shit. And they're like, yeah. And then like, so yeah, when we set off again, and like, I was like, we're in quite a serious situation here. And then when we had the encounter with the cougar, like Dan just decided to run at it and I had to grab him. And I'm like, Jesus, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I thought you said turn right. I was like, no, because he was tripping his nuts off. And so then we got like chased by this cougar, and Dan was like head down, just like marching and trying to run. And I'm looking over my shoulder straight into the eyes of this cougar for like 3 miles. This cougar tracked us. And then speaking to like the locals afterwards, they're like, that thing was trying to kill you. That's why it's trying to, because it kept trying to go down the side, get into a tree above us, and I just put my hand over my head torch and we like run along, and then I'd fire the head torch up into it and it'd be like, ugh, and then jump out the tree. I was like, as long as it's not above us, it's not, because I know they try and drop down on top of you. So I was like shining my head torch out. Dan's like, we've got to go quicker. And I'm like, fucking hell, Dan. Like, and he was oblivious to what was going on around him. I mean, it's a classic sort of like, most runners like that. And yeah, he was very oblivious to things going on around us. And I'm like, shit. You know, like I woke a bear up at night. I'm running past him and he's like, what's wrong with you? It's like, I woke a bear up. And then you hear coming from like 100 meters back. And, you know, and so, yeah, there's just, it's just so much fun when you get out there and actually get into these real adventures. Yeah, I mean, like, I've just had so many wild encounters. I had a badger bite my shoelaces off, and the 2 guys I was running with, this is on North Wales 200. We were going around this big hairpin, and there's like a big bush in the so the road was coming from above, and it came down and around like this, and there's a big bush in between. And I was probably about 50 meters ahead of the other 2, and they upset this badger, which came flying out of this bush at chest height, landed in front of me, and bit my lace clean off my shoe. And I was like, oh, thanks, well done, guys. You've nearly got me eaten by a badger. And they're like, oh, you're seeing things. And I'm like, where's my shoelace? It's gone. There's no shoelace. Because it literally, I put my legs out like that, and it bit that whole lace clean off. So I had to get a different shoelace out of my. Luckily, I always carry a spare shoelace. But And so I had to change my shoelaces. They did not believe me. And I was like, this badger came flying out at chest height and it was pissed. and just this badger completely took my shoelace off. And I was so angry at them. And they're like, oh, you've been seeing things again, Nick. Where the fuck's my shoelace gone? Yeah, just, and like, or like being hunted. I remember doing the rebellion and like I was on my own for hours in the woods. And like every couple of minutes, because you run along with these big head torches and just having this barn owl drop down in front of me and suddenly go, oh shit, that's bright, and then like flap its wings in my face and just fly off. I was like, I hate mid Wales sometimes. Like, it's a beautiful place, but like you're running along and suddenly there's just a barn owl flapping in your face from about a metre away. It's quite a exciting experience, let's say. We're not getting onto the poo stories, but yeah. But just like those interactions, I've just never had on any other sport I've ever done, and so I can only recommend to people, get out there, do longer races, be out. I mean, I've also got like vivid memories of like a squirrel giving me directions. Like I remember standing there in the pitch black, going, I don't know which way to go. Is it that way or that way? And this squirrel came out of the, like, dropped out the tree, and he was like, it's that way, mate. Oh, thank you. And then ran off. And then it was like maybe like an hour later, and I was like, squirrels don't talk. Squirrels aren't awake at 2:00 in the morning, and they definitely don't know where to go. and to this day, I just remember this squirrel coming run down the tree, stood in front of me, and went, it's that way, mate. And I said, thank you. He went, yeah, no worries. And just, that's just a hallucination. It's just in my head. And I've had some great hallucinations over the years. Bob, every time I see Bob, he's still convinced that there were cows. We remember we marched all the way through the night on the South Wales 200. We sat down when daylight had just come up. It was all foggy, and we were up on the moor. And we sat down and ate a bar. I was like, can we just stop? And I'm just going to eat a bar. Just have 5 minutes, sat down, because we literally marched all night long. And he's like, oh, that's a great idea. And then we were sat in like, I was like, oh, we better get moving. We're sat in this bunch of cows. And Bob's going, it's a strange group of cows. It's like there's like about a Galloway over there and a Frisian over there, and that's a Highland. And we couldn't work out why this pack of cows was all different breeds. And anyway, we jumped up and started moving. And then we're like, there are no cows. But the fact that the two of us have been sat there talking about the cows. And I just remember like when we were doing the Beacons Way 100, and he was like, there were definitely cows. It's like there weren't any cows, Bob. That was just us having a mass hallucination, because we started talking about it. So we started encouraging each other's hallucination. It's documented. It's a big thing. And he's like, nah, there were definitely cows. And those sort of, I really remember sitting down with Kyle, he was like an A&E nurse at one of these checkpoints on the Wild Horse, and having a conversation with someone else about their hallucinations, and we're discussing hallucinations. And he was like, if you ever came into a hospital and started talking like that, we'd have you in a ward. Like, that's not normal. Like, people having to deal with hallucinations like that. He's like, that's obviously drugs or massively fatigued, and there's something else going on there. So he said, if you walked into a hospital, we'd put you straight in a ward. Like, there's no two ways about it. But I suppose it's the one thing that shorter ultras don't have, is those committing long nights under intense pressure in terms of, and those hallucinations come out. And sometimes, like, some people have really scary hallucinations. I've never had a really, really scary one. I've had some weird ones, don't get me wrong. And it starts with like little faces on rocks and stuff, because your brain's starting to try and work out, like, what is that on the rock? Is it lichen? Is it a face? And your brain is trying to stitch stuff together. And I love getting to that point as well, because it's another one of those factors that part of the adventure, I suppose. Like doing the Offers Dyke race, and I just remember coming along World's End, which is this really committing tiny little trail, huge great big scree slope, and you're about 2/3 height up it. If you trip, you are going 300 or 400 meters straight down, and you're going to get really seriously injured or killed without question. And I remember the sort of the demons were starting to crawl into my vision, and I was like, I have to just look at that like 3-4 meters in front of me and focus on that, because if I trip and fall, I'm going to die or be very seriously injured. And I know it's a dead zone for the trackers, so they're not going to know for a while. I'm going to have to get myself out of this situation. It was a bit like that in a couple of parts in the Divide as well. But I just focused on this sort of few meters in front of me, and I remember looking off the side and oh shit, I don't know what that was, and it wasn't good, but I just got to keep going, and that sort of dealing with it, it's just it's mind-bendingly wonderful. Like it's like you just got to come and do a 200 miler. Just stop doing this like a ultra every day. Just come and just do one big ass one. It's so much more fun.
Well, I'm going to be doing the 300s back to back next year. So that's pretty much 300 miles. Like I will be running through the night, and I'm following like the official cut-offs, but I'm including the drive in between in those as well. So I'm like, yeah, I'm not really going to sleep, am I? So
when are you doing that?
September.
In September.
So I'm going to line it up. So I'm doing the actual Devona, and then the 4 days build up to that, I'll be doing Epona and Serona.
So I'm in the middle of chatting with Reese over things. So this is like the way my brain works, and it's the way Reese's brain works. So talking about doing Dragon's Back, and I was like, I can't do Dragon's Back and Devona because they finish on the same weekend.
Yeah.
And then when Reese looked at it, and he's like, you could finish Dragon's Back because it finishes on the Saturday.
Yeah.
And then drive, because Devona starts on Saturday morning. And he's like, do you reckon you could drive up and finish the race before the cut-offs? And I was like, I could definitely do that. Might not be able to get that time off with the wife, but so in my head, like that's a perfectly logical situation for me, is just rattle off Dragon's Back and then get in a car and get as fast as I can to Reda to then do Devona.
Yeah.
Because I'll be starting like 24 hours behind everyone else. But I like that kind of challenge. I'm a crazy idiot for things like that. Like that's one thing. Never tell me you can't do it, because I'll be like, bullshit. Like what my beer.
Yeah.
And but anyway, we'll see. Probably not.
I mean, if you fancy it, you could do the 300s with me.
Well, I'll be doing Dragon's Back, unfortunately, that week. So that's sort of.
Oh, have you already signed up for that?
Maybe. So, there's always plans on plans. I mean, like I plan my races like 2 years in advance. So
Okay.
Again, I never switch off on things like that. So like I'm already sort of like planning 2027, 2026 kind of is they're always like a shifting sands, but I've got a few hard and fast locked in. Definitely doing both the wild horses. Yeah. So there's a few hundreds in there. So,
nice.
Yeah.
I've booked next year's events already. Full calendar. I'm like, cool. That's my year next year. I don't go as far as 2 years because I'm still at the point where I don't know what's possible. So like with my 6 and 6, I was like, this is the biggest thing I've ever done by far. Like when I signed up to that, I'd only done 3 ultras and I'd broken myself on all of them. And I was like, I can't do 6 in 6 days. And then when I was building up to that, probably like a month before, I was really confident, and I was like, that's when I decided to do the 300s next year, was a month before I even did the 6. But I'm still at that point where I'm like, well, that's possible, so then what else is? And I'm like, right, I'll wait until I'm at a point where I'm like, because I don't know if the 300s is possible for me. Like, we'll find out. But I'll get to a point where I'll be like, yes, this is possible, or no, it's not. And then I'll decide what the next year is after that. And I'm just like, how big can it go? Because I'm not like you. I don't have a family or a wife commitments. I'm just like, I live on my own. Like, I can do anything if I want to fuck off for like a month or so.
I'm so jealous.
It's just, my thing's just, I got to rely on finances, being self-employed. It's like, how much time can I afford to have off work? And then I'll do that.
Well, you're not the only one who's like that. I mean, that's the biggest limiting factor for me is money. Like, money helps support. Money doesn't buy you happiness, but it can buy you time, and that So, for me, it's my wife. My wife couldn't care less if I did an ultra. I suppose that's probably one of the best sort of home lives you can have, because she'd be like, "Oh, I didn't finish that race," and just shut up and get into bed. You I know you just come back from a race and you're chatty, but you just get into bed. And I've had that conversation several times. You know, the sort of, I've done my race, and she'd be like, "It's 10 o'clock. Shut up and go to sleep." Like, you haven't been drinking, so I can tell you to shut up and you'll listen. And but that's sort of that's the thing. Like, I mean, I drink. I don't, and I eat what I want. And the biggest limiting factor is if I'm allowed to get away with it. So, and probably shouldn't state it like that, but my wife doesn't. My wife has never come to help me on a race. She can't drive, so she'd be useless. So she'd have to get someone else to come and drive her. And it's the only thing we really ever argue over is that the fact that she can't drive. And because apparently she's driven everywhere. I'm a chauffeur really, but so yeah, so that's the sort of things like that. Like, I have to pay for the car. I own the car. It's my car. She wouldn't know what to do with it even if I gave her the keys. So I pay for the car. I pay for because I'm full time. She's like yourself. She's a sole trader. So we both pay into the joint account every month. As long as my £1,000 goes in the joint account, that covers all the bills. Everything else on top of that I can then commit to. But I've got a civil service job. I've got like a couple £100 spare every month for fun. So that's why I've got to plan so far in advance, because if I'm going to spend £1,000 on a race entry, I've got to save for a couple of years, because I don't have enough capital to do that.
Yeah.
I don't mind living like that, but that's my sacrifices. I probably would burn out pretty quick if I had enough money. So, so it's a good thing, really. And I so I've always got stuff on the horizon, and I don't really suffer from the race. I do suffer every now and then from the race blues, but like this time of year, I find really hard because I'm not racing. So January to March time is that's the worst 3 months of the year for me, because I don't have a lot on the plate. I'm doing all my other hobbies. My other big hobby is whiskey, so I'm drinking too much normally, and I do a lot of whittling, so I'm playing with knives. So those two hobbies don't really like gel that much, no. But they do. And in the summer it's barbecues and running. So so fire and fast moving, they do work together. So and I just I don't really know where we're going. We're rambling again, aren't we? Yeah. So I think people should just get out and just run more, but don't run things you want. Run things you find hard. Be kind to yourself. Have a day off, and just the little things make a big difference. And I think everyone should run a 200 miler, because it will completely change the way you view everything else.
Yeah.
Because like you saying you're doing 300 milers, just do a 200 miler, do a 300 miler. Like, they are so different in the attitude of the runners to what happens out on the trail. I watched one video for one of these American ones, and like this woman's saying that she's like, you become part of the scenery. You have such a long period out there that you have a much greater connection with the terrain you're running through, because you spend so long there. I mean, I really am probably a new age hippie at heart, but I just love that sensation of being out there and enjoying the trails. And there's so many stupid things happen out there, and oh god, I could rattle off so many stories to you, which I'm actually surprised I've not done on this. Like, we've been quite focused and sort of talking about adventure and athleticism, and but the big fact is that the adventures are out there. They're not in here, and they're certainly not behind a screen. You can explain them, but they'll never do them justice. Like, getting out and experiencing it for yourself is way more on the priority scale. Should be for everyone. Just but also give back to your community. I think everyone needs to go out and at least volunteer on a race once, and pick a good race. Don't go for a naff one. Pick I mean, I always work quite closely with Reese and Keris on the Pegasus and stuff, because those two, they're doing it for the love of the sport. They're not doing it to make money, even though they do make a bit of money out of it. But they are definitely doing it for the love of the sport, and seeing that behind the scenes is great. I've worked on some other races. I'm not going to mention names and brands and stuff, but I've seen some pretty horrendous stuff, and I've seen some really, really scary stuff. But when you find a race company that is about the community and about giving back to the community, just hold on to that with both hands and please support it, because that's so important to have these communities in the modern world where we are moving further and further apart from each other as human beings and closer to trying this globalization. Like, it's a big thing to find that community, get into it, support it, work on it, make it better, help people, give back, will be far more rewarding than finishing any race.
Yeah.
So yeah, get out there, do that, and like you say, explore. Adventure is about exploring. We are humans. We've lived nomadic lifestyles in the past and stuff, and we've stopped doing that. We settled down from our hunter-gatherer roots and became farmers and got unhealthy and started eating all the same thing and feel like crap, and then have all these existential crises and stuff. But being outside, interacting with people and places is just fundamental to our lives. It should be. We need to do it more. So
yeah, I completely agree, and I think that's a good point to wrap up the podcast.
I'm sorry, I've been trying to do that for a while.
No, that was awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it, and yeah, I can't wait to see what you do next year.
Yeah, well, I've got 2 wild horses. Maybe the dragon's back. A lot of it comes down to money and time for me.
Yeah.
I certainly will be. I've got to do the Epona because I've done the last 2. I don't know if people have noticed, but the way the belt buckles go, there's the Sugarloaf was the first year. This year was the Skirrid. So this year's the Blorange. So you've got to get the 3 peaks of Abergavenny belt buckles. It's a little thing, but those little. It's one of those things like, those little things bring us back every year, and I hate the Epona. I think it's a crap race. I hate to say this, Reece, I'm sorry. I just don't like it.
That's the one I'm most looking forward to.
But Treville Village is the strangest place I've ever been to, right? And sorry, I know we were trying to wrap it up, but like the first year I did that race, I remember coming down into the village, and the police came up in a pickup truck, and I've never seen a police pickup truck before. It was all done like a police. They wound the window down. They're like, "All right, bud, you seen any boys on bikes?" And look back, and there's a completely empty hillside behind me. Nope. Okay. And then they wound their window up and carried on driving up the hill. And I ran down into the village, and then just as I got into the chicken, there was all these chickens everywhere. There's like 100 feral chickens and 5 dogs having a fight. And I'm like, what the hell? And I'm like stuck in this like mass brawl between chickens and dogs. And I was like, but it's like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. There's not a single human to be seen. And then I go run down the road, and there's the checkpoint in the pub. Brilliant. This year, I turn up in Treville Quarry, and it's like 2 o'clock. It's about midnight, actually. I was like, Treville surely cannot be, nothing can be happening in Treville. There were 2 street lamps in Treville, and there were like a parade of pregnant ponies in the dark just coming down the road as I'm running the opposite direction. They don't even look up, they're just clopping along. Like, all these like pregnant ponies. And I'm like, not a human in sight. Like, I'm like, this is freaky. And there's just the 2 lamps, and I can see this line of pregnant ponies coming up. I'm like, things that happen in Treville. And then you get to a rugby club that he set up at his checkpoint. And then he's like, oh, we've got to use the bar area because they're still doing dancing in the main hall. And they've got like a ballroom dancing night. And then I got told they don't even have a rugby pitch. So really, what you've got is a building for people to get pissed in and have a shower. Like, they don't have anywhere to play. Like, what is going on with Treville? Like, anyway, so Treville is like batshit crazy place to be. And then there's like, and yeah, I just think like it links some real, that's the beauty of ultra running. Like, I know that's my backyard. Like, I spent 6 months building the footpath on top of Wine Vark when I worked at the national parks, and so I know the mountain section really well. And then I go to like the southern section, I go through Treville, and it's like, what is this? And the fact that people come from outside to experience that in the Brecon Beacons, and that Brecon Beacons is probably one of the best national parks in the world that I've ever been to, because there's so many random bits to it. I mean, we had one of the very first UNESCO World Heritage Sites. It is literally the shittest UNESCO World Heritage Site in the world. Glenavon is just weird council estates, but yet that's where the Industrial Revolution started. And you turn up and you go, this is a World Heritage Site with the same protections as the Giza pyramids. And you rock up and you go, wow, Glenavon is quite run down. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, historically, it's such an important place, and it has such a charm when you actually go up there. And like, my cousin lived up there, and like, the people are utterly amazing, but there's nowhere else like it. Like, you just think, like, you look at that and you look at like the Giza pyramids, or the Tower of London, like all these big named, sort of incredible human feats of engineering that we've done thousands of years ago, Stonehenge, and then you go there and it's, wow, this was one of the first. I mean, we said this should be protected above what? and then you go to the other side of the park and you got the Geopark, and that's like the same protections as like the Grand Canyon in America and stuff, and you just like, the showcase have got some plastic dinosaurs outside it, and you just think, what? There's some madly beautiful things up there. There's like a big dry stone wall that the Napoleonic prisoners of war built, because they couldn't work out anything worse for the French to do than walk up onto the hill above Danarogoff and build a dry stone wall. Like, that's torment for the French. Like, so there's just a random dry stone wall in the middle of nowhere, just built by French prisoners of war. I love that. Like, what the history there and the wildness and people don't get to experience that unless you're up on that hill and you go, this is shit. I wouldn't want to come up here every day, particularly if you're French and you're used to the south of France and they've got good food, nice looking women, and then you go to Ostragunlice and go, right, boys, you're going up on the hill there today and you're building a dry stone wall. How long are we doing that for? Depends how long the war is. Like, and so yeah, I just love that sort of, like, we've got some great stuff here, and yeah, not enough people understand that South Wales has got it all.
Yeah.
Even if it's on a small scale, we've got it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love it.
Yeah.
All right, we will wrap it up there. Thanks again for listening to another episode of the Adventure Athletes podcast. If you really want to help this podcast grow, then like, share, subscribe. It really means the world to me. I do this all out of pocket. I do it for enjoyment and because I get to share these stories with you guys and share some things that I think provide value to the community. So yeah, I'd love to make this grow as wide as I can, and hopefully be able to get bigger and better guests on the more I do it. It's grown massively since I started. It's been over 2 years, coming up to 3 years now of doing the podcast, and it has completely changed my life, and I'm hoping that it's providing some way of changing the lives of those that are listening as well. So if you enjoy it, please share it. It really does help the podcast grow more than you can ever imagine. Yeah, until next time, guys.